Today I went to the chess club and I played against this guy twice. He said he was around 900 on chess.com, 8 to 900, closer to 900, but he's been trying to break through to 1,000 and hasn't been able to. We played two games. In the first game, I didn't know what his rating was, and he didn't know what my rating was either. In the second game, I was playing as white, and we had just talked over the first game, so we both knew each other's ratings at this point. Okay, so I don't really play E4 pretty much ever. The last time I played E4 seriously was when I was 1800, and that was in 2020. So that's really cool. Anyways, I play knight c3, and here he lets me know that online his opponents pretty much never play knight c3. This comment will be important later. Okay, so he almost never faces knight c3. So I asked him, what does he face? He faces e5, and he faces knight f3, hanging the pawn. So that's what he told me his two most common responses are, and of course he has developed ideas to play against both of them, especially against e5, because I know he is a Gotham enjoyer, so he knows what to do there. Here he plays e6, okay? And this is the problem with not knowing enough openings, which is a very strange problem, because I don't feel like this problem is talked about quite enough. So in order to understand why e6 is bad, and if you're like above like let's say 1300, you probably already know this, okay? But in order to understand why, not that, let's promote this to the main promote move. Thank you. All right. In order to understand why this move is bad, you have to understand the French. And not only do you have to know the French, you have to understand why the French is played the way they are. The third opening that you need to understand is the Scandinavian. Okay. So, but before you understand the Scandinavian, you also have to understand what white wants to do. Okay. If white can, he's going to play both pawns in the center, right? Now, if black plays some nonsense and we have both these pawns in the center, they control a lot of stuff, right? And being in the center is good because it gives you mobility to hit many different parts of the board at the same time. If you're not in the center, it's harder to cover that ground. Okay? So now that that makes sense, we now know that it's if white can, he's going to play e4 and d4, right? That's why a lot of lines you'll see white play c3. He wants to play d4 and then recapture with the pawn. Okay? So one day, black players got tired of playing e5, which, I mean, it kind of stops d4, but white can still really play it whenever he wants to, right? Instead, black was like, what if I played d5, right? And d5 is instantly fighting. You're not just taking your share of the center, you're actively challenging white's share of the center, right? Now, of course, people figured out pretty quickly that the problem with the Scandinavian is that you move your queen like a billion times in the opening, only to put it on c7. And they were like, that seems like a bit of a problem, right? And a problem it was, so people stopped playing this as frequently. And somebody had a really good idea. They're like, what if we play d5, but instead of doing it instantly, we recaptured with a pawn, right? And so e6 and c6 were born. The point of these moves is that when you play d5 challenging white's pawn, you can recapture with your own pawn. Okay, this way you don't get your queen kicked out a billion times. This all makes sense, right? Now, in the French, if white plays e5, what does black play? Of course, right? No, I wasn't going to let you guys pause the video. So black's trying to hit d4 and all this kind of good stuff, right? Now, it's important to note that in the advanced French, black gets to play c5 in one move, okay? Now, if we go to the Caro-Kann advanced line, now, the old main line was to get your bishop out, okay? Before I talk about that, I know Gotham likes his c5. I know lots of people play c5, but the ideas are still the same. Black does get his bishop out first, right? And then after playing this, then he can play c5 at some point, right? Now the problem here is that you played c5 in two moves instead of one, right? On the other hand, your bishop is out, right? If we take a look back into French, you might notice that it is impossible for this bishop to get out, right? You see, it won't let me, okay? I'm not high rated enough for my bishop to jump over pawns. Now, when we go to the main game, then he plays e6. What he does here is he gives himself all the downsides of the French defense and all the downsides of the Caro-Kann, and he gets nothing in return for it. Like, what do you get from this move? You get mildly more solid center, right? If you think about it, was White threatening to take this? I mean, he could take it, but it's not a threat because it's not winning anything, right? Let's say if you play some nonsense and he takes it. Well, I mean, White would like to take this pawn if your queen wasn't guarded, but that's a moot point because the queen is guarding it. So it's not like he's going to win anything. It's just a trade, right? So you don't need to be scared and play e6. Okay. But he did play e6. And this is probably one of the very strange things that, like, you'll often have people go around, they'll be saying, like, "Oh, don't learn too many openings. Oh, learning openings is a waste of time." And then what you get is you get people that play, like, bullshit like this, and they don't understand what any of their moves are. They don't understand why they play their moves. They're just like, "Ooh, this is a good opening. I bought a Chessable course on it." The Chessable course doesn't tell you why exactly they play their moves. I mean, some of them do, but if you're having to, like, explain it to a beginner, why you put your pieces where they are in the order that they go, I mean, how, right? For example, why do you play knight c3? Can you explain that? If you're currently an e4 player and you play knight c3 against the Caro-Kann, why do you play that? Maybe if you play the two knights, why do you play this? Do you play this because of what reason? Why exactly are you moving your knight here instead of your pawn? Can you tell me? Does that make sense? I mean, this is not an answer saying like something like, "Oh, I really like this position that I get." That's not an answer. That's not a reason why these moves are played. You don't play a move because, "Oh, if my opponent does this, then this will be good for me," right? Um, now, you don't the reason why that you don't think like this is because if your opponent plays some bullshit and you don't know why you played the moves you did, right? Your opponent's move doesn't have to be a good move, but then all of a sudden you don't know how to coordinate your pieces. You don't know why you put them where they are, and you don't know where they're going to go, and you don't know how the game's going to develop, and you don't know anything. And if you don't know anything, how are you going to play good chess? If you don't play good chess, how are you going to win? So none of this makes sense. And now, the reason why you play knight c3 is because, well, your pawn's attacked, right? Now, you could have a handful of reasons for not playing e5. For example, you might not like the fact that your pawns get super stiff, or maybe in a lot of similar positions, you don't do very good with pawn chains or whatever, right? Or you just might want to keep holding the tension, right? For example, knight c3, if black captures your pawn, then he brings your knight into the center, right? That's not so bad now, is it, right? So that would be like a legitimate reason. Now, of course, black can't try to instantly trade off your knight, but then we have a whole different kind of like argument here, okay? The point is not to give like anything concrete, but you need to have a reason for playing the moves you do, okay? When he plays e6, there isn't a very good reason to be playing e6 besides something vague like I'm afraid he might take and then what, right? So I played e5 and then he plays bishop to b4, okay? And this is another thing which I don't think people should run around being like, "Oh, you're like 1,000 points stronger than me. Please play me. I'll surely learn a lot from playing you." If you're like 1,000 and you play someone who's 2,400, I'm not going to learn almost anything from the game unless they explain things to you after the game. Okay, and the reason is when you play moves like this, they look perfectly normal and they follow the opening principles and they should be fine, right? Well, if you're playing against someone your level, then yeah, it's fine. But when you're playing against someone who's much, much stronger than you, like these like really small things that don't matter and you don't need to be focusing on them, these small errors, they add up and then you just lose the game because of it, right? So here I played queen g4. It's not the top move. Oh, I guess it is, looking at the engine. Huh. Okay, well, I guess queen g4 is a better move than I thought. And now I don't play e4, but I've seen my share of French defense games, and a lot of the times you do play queen g4 in the win-over variations, right? So I was like, oh, queen g4 seems quite good. I mean, he's playing a French defense without c5, and he's playing the win-over without the c5. I have no pressure here. There's no reason why I shouldn't play queen g4, right? Then he plays g6, which isn't like a terrible move, but I mean, you do weaken all your dark squares. Not that if you're like 900, you don't really need to be overly concerned about these types of weaknesses, although if you do want to improve, you should. But after some stuff, I give up a pawn and then I start an attack, right? And to his credit, he does find quite a few good moves, but I missed a chance to sack, but then he gives it to me right back. Now I take like this, and I'm not really going to commentate too much on the next few moves until the game ends, because it's not really worth commentating on. Actually, I actually lied. Here, there is a very interesting possibility for him to play this and take this little check, but I wasn't too concerned with this because this would be mate. But he didn't do that. He attacked my queen, and I saw it. And then in this position, I mean, there isn't really anything for him to do. In fact, he lost after playing this, and he got mated immediately. But things like this, like Black just gets instantly punished for playing something like so simple, bishop to b4. If you're a 900 and you're playing bishop to b4, like, it's not a good move. But if you're not, this isn't the type of thing that you need to be focusing on. But when you play like 2400s, this is the type of thing you need to be focusing on. And it's just like a complete waste of time. You learn all these like really like niche things that don't apply to your games. And that's not the stuff that you need to be concerned about. But then you play like some 2400 and whatever. But yeah, back to the topic of the video, which is that if you can figure out why you play your moves, you will be playing good moves most of the time. Okay. So let's say, why don't we play bishop here? Well, I mean, it's because if he plays knight here, then, I mean, either retreat is a little bit suspicious. Okay, I mean, first of all, bishop back here probably drops the pawn instantly, so we can't play that, meaning that our only choice is bishop to f3. But then this is really where our knight wants to be. I mean, sure, our knight can go to e2, but I mean, would really rather be on f3 where it helps control e5. I mean, this is one of Black's possible pawn breaks. I mean, if you're not controlling that, you know. The lack of c4 support from a bishop on this diagonal here might also prove to be a problem, although I don't really see it being that much. But it does mean that Black has a new option with bishop to e6, which may or may not prove to be in his favor in the future. And of course, like f3, the point of f3 is quite simple, right? If he takes this, you get a nice pawn center. Yippee! I mean, not anymore, but you get the idea, okay? But for the Black side, let's say we're in that 900 rated player's shoes, and we've never seen knight c3 before. How would we go about finding a good move? I mean, we know this. We just figured out why this isn't a good move, right? So let's look at some other move, maybe knight f6, okay? Now, after knight f6, what are some possible moves? Well, if he takes this, I mean, this looks quite fine for Black, right? One of the key points of the Caro-Kann is that you want to get your bishop out, and then you play e6. Okay, you see this theme in a lot of different Caro-Kann lines. So it looks like he's doing quite good because he hasn't blocked in his bishop in that line. Okay. However, if White plays e5, then this looks awfully like another very similarly related opening, right, to the Caro-Kann and the French, except this time we do seem to be a couple tempi behind, right? Let's compare. In this position, Black can instantly move the bishop out, right? Then he can play e6, and so on and so forth. Here, not only is White up in development, well, you guys are equal in development, but this guy is going to be moving somewhere else pretty soon, so you're not. Not only is White up in development, you are actively falling behind, right? If you wanted to get the bishop out, you have to make 2 moves, in which in that time period, White could develop 2 more pieces, which is something that Black would not have to deal with in the regular line of the advanced variation, right? And if you wanted to play c5, well, you are playing c5 in 2 moves, so you're already behind. But not only are you behind, this pawn is also hanging. So if you want to defend the pawn, you have to play e6, but then why are you playing the Caro-Kann if you're not going to get your bishop out? And not only are you not getting your bishop out, you are also taking 2 moves to play c5. So nothing about this position makes sense if you think about it, right? Figuring this out, it's easy to see that e5 is white's strongest move, and that black is not doing good, clearly not doing good in e5, right? And of course, if you check with the engine, you'll see that it is plus 1.18, approximately, because I'm not a premium member anymore. Approximately plus 1 for white, and it's only move 4. That's fantastic for white. Now, so this doesn't work, right? And bishop to e6 is nonsense. You're blocking your bishop and your pawn. This is a possible pawn break that you want to be doing. So bishop e6 is nonsense. Bishop to d7 is nonsense. Your knight wants to be there. And this move drops a pawn. Very easily it drops a pawn. That's not what I meant to play. I meant to play this, but both moves drop a pawn, so it doesn't matter. With that being said, it's you don't really have too many options. You have to play this, right? And then after knight back, you now have quite a few different ways to develop, right? But if we keep in mind that the Caro-Kann, one of the main ideas of the Caro-Kann is to get this bishop out before you play e6, we can now get our bishop out, and then we can play e6, right? We're going to assume that our opponents are also around 900, and that they're not going to play h4, h5 with c4 and all this bullshit. Okay, we're going to assume this, generously assume this. I sure hope no 900s are playing all of this theory at that level. That would be very terrifying, actually. But yes, now we have blundered into the main line, and black simply develops his pieces like this, and then castles, and then maybe he plays for c5 or something. I don't know. I don't play the Caro-Kann. I also don't play e4. But these are going to be the general plans, and this is in fact quite theoretical. So you have managed to play top grandmaster moves, even though you don't know the theory, right? And so when you think about things like this, try to think about it logically. It's quite clear why certain moves are the best moves and certain moves are theory, right? Bishop to f5 is the old main line, because the whole point of playing the Caro-Kann is to get a French without the blocked bishop, right? If that's the whole point, then of course people will be playing bishop to f5 here because it makes sense, right? Only recently has this line been getting popular, and it's mainly because people don't like the positions on move 20 that they're getting, which isn't really a concern for you if you're like 900 rated anyways, because you're not going to be getting into those positions. You know what I mean? Right? Let's give this with another opening, the Sicilian. Now, some people might not know this about the Sicilian, but in the Sicilian, you actually do want to play d5. Okay? That is, in fact, a move. If white plays something like here, now you could play d5, but I mean, like, what do we have here? I wonder if I mentioned something like this at the beginning of the video, you know, something about moving the queen up too much. And I mean, some people might have certainly fallen for this blunder, okay? But even if they don't play that blunder, let's say they don't want to move their queen back and set the board up for the next game, okay? But even then, this is really very unfortunate. I mean, you have just your sole queen out, all of this bullshit is happening, and there's nothing right's going on for black. This position is terrible. So you can't play d5 here. That's why people play other moves like e6 and d6 and knight c6 and a6. And if you're me, you'll play knight f6. But that's just me. Okay. Now, if they play some nonsense like a3, let's think about what we want in the Sicilian. If you can play d5, d5 is good. Okay. The point of a3 is to play b4, which means that playing knight c3 would block their bishop that would be going to b2. In that case, d5 is perfectly reasonable, right? Because if they do play like this, okay, let's just move the queen back because I don't feel like calculating anything based on queen d6. Let's just say this, okay? Now, sure, you've wasted time with your queen, but if they're not going to play b4, then they've wasted time with a3. Does that make sense? Okay. And so maybe they'll just like develop normally, but then you just have like a perfectly normal game. You play, and then all of this comes out and castle, yada, yada, yada. It's perfectly normal. right? And then if they, of course, if they do play like b4 or something, then that's like a whole other thing, right? But you can probably still ignore it. Another line that a lot of people have trouble with is the Bowdler attack. Although trouble would probably be the bad word, not a good word for it, because nobody really has too much trouble with this. But one of the most popular ways to play against the Bowdler is to play. And let's say white knows what he's doing. He stops b5. Okay. One of the most popular ways is to play for d5 against the Bowdler. Okay. And this is because you do want to get d5 in if you're playing the Sicilian. Okay. Another Sicilian is the Con. Okay. In this game, a lot of the times in this opening, a lot of the times you'll be having this hedgehog setup, right? And in this setup, black is trying to go for d5. That way he opens up the position for his pieces, right? And so on and so forth. So as you can see, d5 is pretty integral to many Sicilian openings, not to mention other ones such as the Dragon, Accelerated Dragon, Sicilian, and Kalashnikov, and certain Najdorf positions where you do have this weak d5 square. If black can push d5, he's always doing pretty good. Okay, so if you're like thinking by yourself, like, well, I don't know the theory for this because my opponent played some nonsense, right? Let's say you're playing the Sicilian and then your opponent plays some nonsense, right? This isn't really nonsense, but if you don't know what the move is, then it's nonsense to you, right? So you can play d5 because you're like, oh, because the knight can't go there, right? So d5 must be good. d5, black wants to play d5. And of course you would be right because this position is very theoretical, and it's theoretical because d5 is a good move and you want to play d5 and it loops and loops and loops and loops until your head hurts. So yeah, if I was a better player or a better teacher, or if I prepared scripts for these videos, I would have more examples, but I don't. So that's the end of the video.